When dealing with imported data, it can be quite useful to be able to compare what you have in one set of data to what you might have in another set of data. Here in our contacts extract F, we have a number of sheets. The first two are contacts and contacts 2, and what we'd like to know is if any of the contacts in contacts does not exist in contacts 2 and vice versa. Does anybody in contacts 2 not exist in contacts? Because they're meant to be the same set of data, but we're trying to find out if they're not. Now, the easiest way to do this is to use the unique ID, customer ID, and run a VLOOKUP. So we would look up each of the customer IDs from contacts through the list in contacts 2 and see if they exist there. So in order to do that, there's two little things I would do to start with. That is to name the ranges. So I'd highlight the first set of IDs and give that a sensible name, contact A, and then go to contacts 2 and do the same thing. Highlight just the customer IDs and call that contact B. No imagination. Don't forget that range names cannot have spaces within them. Now that they're named, it just makes the formulas a little easier to work with. We need a blank column for me to do the lookup within. Call this check2. What I want to check is equals VLOOKUP. I'm checking if that ID there, comma, exists on the second sheet. So that's contacts B. My lookup column is the first column. I've only got one column in the table, and it must be an exact match. False. Return, and it does exist. If I then replicate that formula, it will check each of them, and the ones that do not exist are NA. Just to make my sheet a little easier to read, I'm going to edit the formula and use if is NA. So if the VLOOKUP itself turns an NA, i.e. the ID does not exist in the other sheet, then what do I want to happen? Put a little message out that says not exist, else. If it does exist, then I don't want anything to happen. It's there, so that's fine. So we'll just put a set of speech marks with nothing in them, close the round bracket for the if, return, and the first one is nothing. Perhaps need a little symbol in there, otherwise it looks like it's an empty cell. Let's replicate that, and where it doesn't exist in the other set of data, I get not exist, and where it does exist, I just get that little hyphen. Then we do exactly the same thing in contacts 2. We insert another column, and we do a little check. This time, I'm checking that ID, comma, exists in contact A. Again, first column, and it's got to be an exact match. So when I replicate, the numbers match up, except when it doesn't exist in the other sheet, I'll get #NA, and there are a couple of them. Again, what I would do is exactly the same as I did with the other. Put an if is NA in here so that I'm not seeing the number twice. I'm seeing whether it matches or whether it doesn't match. That's one use of this VLOOKUP, just to check comparing two sets of data. Where you might have some linked information, for example here, sales, what I need to know in the sales is if the IDs here exist in my data. Because if they don't, then I'm going to have what effectively are orphan records, some sales for somebody who doesn't exist in the data. So I need to check this 11069 and all the other IDs against both of my lists of people. So I've already created the two little lookup tables, which effectively is the first column of each of those. What I need to do in here is now check both of those. So equals VLOOKUP, the ID against the first one, contact A, and if it's there, it finds it. Then in the second cell there, I do the VLOOKUP for the other one. Really, all I want to know is if they're there or not. I don't want to do all these VLOOKUPs, see the result. I want to be a little bit cleverer with my formula. So equals if is NA of the first lookup. What I'm doing is I'm looking up my 11069 into contact A. If the result is NA, it means the person does not exist. So I need a set of speech marks with missing ID. Otherwise, I would go ahead and look in the second set of data. If is NA VLOOKUP. So I'm looking at the same number, but I'm looking in the second set of information, contacts B. First column match, got to be exact. If is NA of that lookup, then it also doesn't exist because it isn't in the second list either. Missing ID. Otherwise, it's good. Okay. I should be asking this if it isn't found in the first one, not saying it's missing. Let's move the whole of that if portion, cut to be after that one. And then the second set of closed brackets there to close the outer if. The first if asks, is A2 in that list? If it's not, so it is an A, then we see if it's in the second list. If it's not, then it's missing. Otherwise, we're all okay. And we've got an extra missing, then we don't need it. That's my if question, true, false. That's my if question, true. What I haven't got is my false portion, which is going to be just okay, because it exists. So it exists in contacts A, it gets an okay. It exists in contacts B, it gets an okay. If it doesn't exist in contact A, we ask again. But contacts B, if it doesn't exist in contacts B either, then we get missing ID. That sounds better logic. That one's okay. Let's replicate this down the list to find them all. And we have a missing ID. 30,500 is missing. Now I know it is because the IDs actually don't go that high. Are there any others? Nope, that's just the one. So having added this check column, we could again give that a label of check. And we can even sort by that check column. So we perhaps would sort A to Z. That way all the missings, if there are more than one, would appear at the top of the list to save me scrolling down. I know there's not many records in here, but there could be thousands, hundreds of thousands. So that's using the VLOOKUP along with an is, an A, and an if, just to check both between two sets of data to see if they match, and then to check when you have some more effectively child data to see if there's any orphan records, because this record now, $32, has no match with the contact data we've been given. So we actually have a lost record here that we would need to match up to perhaps somebody else.